What is going on, Pacer Nation? Welcome back to your go-to Pacers podcast, and we are here to talk all things Pacers as they take down the Miami Heat on Saturday night without Tyrese Haliburton dropping 144 points. Facci, who is this team, and do we need Haliburton?
Haliburton, who? Who's that? No, look, here's the thing. Going into that game, I'm going to be honest. It was probably the least excited I was to watch the Indiana Pacers. You're talking about no Haliburton, coming off of a loss. The team had been slumping, and I got my wife asking me if we could watch The Grinch on TV. I was like, all right, babe, I'm not there yet. Like, let me. I got to tune in. I got to see what happens. And I was stunned. I was surprised. I had a blast. This Pacers team, just when you think you might count them out, they responded in a fantastic way, taking down the Miami Heat without Tyrese Haliburton. And offensively, Alex, somehow not only did they not skip a beat, they were as good as could be.
Yeah, I mean, they got off to a slow start, and then things really clicked for them there with like the final 36 minutes of the game or whatever, maybe 40 minutes of the game. It was just like the first 6 to 8 minutes with the starters was awful. It was like, okay, this is one of those games where you're like, yeah, let me throw on the Grinch, like you said. And it was funny because I was out doing groceries and running errands with my wife before the game started. And when she found out Haliburton wasn't playing, she goes, oh, so does that mean you don't have to watch? I was like,
yeah.
No, I have to watch. I mean, regardless, we're going to talk about this on the pod. I got to write an article about it. Like, you got to do that. But, I think we should just jump right into it. Obviously, we're going to start things off with our first segment here of the post-game recap. And we're going to get into the keys that led to this Pacers win. So, Facci, what is the first one that you had?
First one I'm going with, no Tyrese Haliburton. How are you going to handle that scoring load? Well, 6 Pacers scored 16 or more, including 4 Pacers having 20 or more. They were led by Bruce Brown with 30. I mean, if we really want to break it down, Tyrese Haliburton had 44 points last game against Miami. How are you going to make up for that? Well, the Pacers did it in a collective effort. Yes, I mentioned Bruce Brown led the team with 30, but you also had Obi with 22. Nesmith and McConnell had 20 apiece. Miles had 17, and Benedict Mathurin had 16. Alex, those 6 players combined to shoot 86% from the field. I mean, that's a collective effort right there.
No, I mean, it was incredible. I mean, the efficiency of these guys are making shots with was just insane. Like, I was blown away how many times I was like, how many points does that person have? How many does he have? It's just like we talked about that first unit. They really struggled, but when they came back in after the second unit kind of spearheaded things, that's when things really took off for everybody. And it felt like nobody was missing shots. So they played the right style of basketball. They got into what they wanted to do. And I think that's what really helped to hitting those shots. But they've been missing a lot recently. And Tyrese Haliburton always talks about the law of averages every post game when he's asked about, guys didn't shoot the ball well tonight. You were 8 of 35 from 3. What did you think? They're like, well, they were all good shots. They just weren't falling. And fans are like, whatever. We don't want to hear that. And then you watch a game like Saturday night, and you're like, okay, maybe they're onto something because the Pacers run a really good offense and they get the looks that they need to get. It's just a matter of it's a make or miss league. And sometimes it is that simple. Now there's other things they can do, obviously, but when you're hitting shots like that, it just gives you confidence and it allows you to be more impactful in other areas of the game as well.
No, it really does. Just to put things in a full perspective, because you mentioned that first quarter, Pacers missed 15 shots in the first quarter. They then missed 14 shots in the next 3 quarters combined. The Pacers overall shot 66%. It's the second best in franchise history. It's the worst that Miami has ever experienced. So I think it's great when Miami had one of their best games against the Pacers ever in the franchise history in terms of what they scored in the previous game, and then we delivered one of the worst defensive efforts that Miami has ever experienced. I mean, a lot can turn around, a lot can change in just one game.
Absolutely, Facci. And I want to go to my next key point here because something we talked about in the preview, and you brought it up. You said, can our bench please show up to a game? It feels like they haven't shown up in a while, and they ended up scoring 64 points. Ben Mathurin had 16 points. Aaron Nesmith and T.J. McConnell both had 20. And then Isaiah Jackson came in and provided some really good minutes in the 8 minutes he played. He got 8 points as well. And if you go back to Miami's bench, Miami had a really good showing from their bench in this game once again. I thought Caleb Martin was really good. Josh Richardson, once again, was efficient like always. And Hawkins Jr. had some good moments. Kevin Love was pretty good offensively too. They had 59 points, but the Pacers outscored them 64-59, and it was really the bench that I think led to the Pacers getting things going. I think T.J. McConnell was just massive in this game, Facci, and what he brought in terms of setting the pace, no pun intended, but he really did. He established that pace the Pacers were lacking with that starting 5, And I thought Ben Mathurin was looking for a shot. Aaron Nesmith was looking for his shot. And I tweeted out, I was like, these guys got to step up and have a really good game. And they did. Mathurin, I think, had 8 points by the end of the first quarter. So that was really good to see from him, just to see him make quick decisions, get the ball in the basket, and provide the Pacers that scoring threat they needed, because in that first unit, nobody was really scoring the basketball or looking to score. And that's why Andrew Nembhard was kind of having to be that guy. And he's just not that kind of player. So I thought that it was just a great overall showing from that first unit. And I really thought TJ McConnell's incredible game was a statement of that. I mean, 10 of 11 from the field, Facci, 20 points, 11 assists. Guy was everywhere.
Just one turnover also. I think McConnell just played a fantastic game. And overall, for a bench unit, I mean, you talked about it, 64 points. In the previous game against Miami, the bench had 23 points. They nearly triple, their production. So I think the bench really set the tone in this game. You mentioned set the pace, set the tone, whatever you want to call it. The bench did it. And I just feel like there was so much to like with that bench unit. And this was that type of game that you really said, okay, look, you for so long we've wondered who could be the number two. On tonight, it felt like you had 5 number twos. And that was the big thing. And that was a major difference in this game and a major key to this win. My next key, Obi Toppin on both sides of the ball. Alex, Obi's never been known for his defense. If anything, he's gotten heavily scrutinized for his defense. But he owned guarding Jimmy Butler. He really took it as seriously as I've ever seen Obi Toppin guard anybody. And I felt that he really made Jimmy work for everything. Like, you could look down and be like, Jimmy Butler had 33 points. What do you mean? He made him work for everything. Obi had a career-high 4 blocks in the game. But I think a big thing was he kept Jimmy off the line. The free throw line for the most part. 11 less free throws for Jimmy Butler, who I felt just lived in the paint and on the free throw line in that first game against Miami. But let's also not forget that Obi poured in 22 points on 7 of 8 shooting, 4 of 4 from 3. I just felt like it was as complete of a game as he could have possibly played. And I'm going to be honest, I was worried because of how reliant Obi had been on his offense to come from Tyrese Haliburton. He was just able to just really own what he had to do on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, I mean, I made the joke with Caitlin Cooper that he's kind of the gravy to Tyrese's mashed potatoes because they go together. And he kind of proved me wrong last night by showing that he can hold his own without Tyrese. And I think everybody is a beneficiary of Tyrese's passing abilities and just ability to get them open with his creation. But I mean, Obi Toppin was all over the floor last night. You talked about it, the 4 career blocks. He had 2 in 1 possession that led to a shot clock violation. He held Jimmy Butler in the possessions that he was the primary defender on Jimmy Butler to 4 of 11 shooting. Oof. And if you really pay attention in this game, Jimmy Butler is a foul merchant. He loves to get guys in foul trouble, and he loves to use that pump fake. He's one of those guys that almost plays the game to get you in foul trouble and live at the free throw line. And so, like, he still ended up having, 33 points last night? But by the end of the third quarter, he had taken 3 free throw attempts. He got 6 of them in that fourth quarter, and the Pacers really just had another dominant performance in the fourth quarter scoring-wise, so it didn't really matter as much. But, like, I thought that Toppin's ability to kind of slow him down and just put some size on him, like Rick Carlisle talked about, the size that Toppin gives Jimmy Butler, like, that makes it a lot more harder to work and score on than going up against a Bruce Brown or an Aaron Nesmith, who are 4 inches shorter. So that is where it's really beneficial to have a bigger power forward like that you can throw at a Jimmy Butler. That's athletic too, because I really thought Obi Toppin just played great. Then offensively, you touched on it, the efficiency that he shot the ball with was just incredible. Didn't really touch the ball at all in that first 6 minutes. I mean, it was more of the Nembhard show because their offense was so clunky and he was the only one taking open looks. So yeah, I thought that Obi Toppin really great game. And I love that he played through the injury, because I thought there for a second they were going to have to pull him with the ankle injury. And I didn't know how that was going to play out for him. We'll see if he's able to play Monday versus Celtics. I think that there's still a question mark, maybe if he's healthy or not, but you got to love the way that he played. And you talk about, the free throw attempts, right? I think as a team, the Pacers did a great job collectively keeping Miami off of the free throw line, which is something they really struggle with. This is a team that has always struggled or has struggled all season long with defending with fouling. They haven't been able to defend without fouling, but only 24 free throw attempts for Miami, and I think they had 45 the previous games. So you basically cut that in half, and you win by 15 points. It kind of feels like that might have been the difference there. you keep your guys healthy and get out there on the not healthy, but you keep your guys available and out there on the court so they're not sitting on the bench being fouled out. And one of the things too, you talked about the efficiency shooting wise. I know I'm talking a lot here. I apologize, but the 3-point shooting from the Pacers I thought was pivotal in terms of this not allowing Miami to kind of get out and run. So and get the Pacers in bad defensive position, which would get them in foul trouble. So shooting the ball well and making Miami kind of take the ball out of the net and then play that kind of style more half court and allow the Pacers to kind of get set in their defense instead of scrambling like it felt like they were by all the missed threes they had the previous game.
No, I mean, that's a major key because you got to think of that first game against Miami. I mean, Neesmith fouls out, Mathurin fouls out, Buddy Hield fouled out, and then Obi Toppin had 5. Yeah. I just felt like every Pacer was using as many fouls as they possibly could because of things like Jimmy Butler just getting to the line, or Jaime Jaquez. It felt like Miami was attacking the Pacers. The Pacers could do nothing but foul. They really made that adjustment, and it was noticeable. And I know that overall for the game, I think the Pacers might have ended up committing, I think, only maybe 7 less fouls or so. But it wasn't. It was less fouls in the act of shooting, which made a big difference in this game. So I think that was major. You're talking about 20 to 25 less free throws for Miami in those two games, a 21 free throw difference. That is so huge, especially in a game that's decided by 15. I mean, who's to say that maybe Miami could have went, 15 to 20 from the line, 15 to 21, whatever it may have been. So that's a major difference. And my last key that I got over here in terms of what I think was a big difference in this game was the second half performance that we saw from this Pacers team compared to last game. Last game, Indiana surrendered 78 points to the Heat while only scoring 59. This time around, Miami scored 64, but Miami gave up 79. And the 79 points came on 79% shooting in the second half. So I feel like it was just basically a roles reversed. The Pacers came out really hammering Miami offensively, but also tightening up on defense. Compared to last game, we saw Indiana fade away in that second half. Miami had all the momentum, and come that fourth quarter, once that started, it wasn't even close. Miami ran away with it.
Yeah, I mean, that second half was incredible, Facci. I mean, everybody shot over 66% except Andrew Nembhard, who went 1 of 4. Yeah. So that's insane. I mean, Buddy Hield was 100%, Obi Toppin 100%, Bruce Brown was 7 of 10 for 70%, Miles Turner was 6 of 7 for 85.7%, TJ McConnell 5 for 5, 100%. I mean, everybody just was clicking, and it was just a great collective effort. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. So it was just one of those nights where it's like, okay, the Pacers are really about to do this thing because, we both thought probably walking into this without Tyrese, how are we going to win this game? And I know you were really nervous about it. And I thought, well, they did lose the previous game, so maybe they are a little bit more motivated. And I thought TJ McConnell not playing in the last game, he could kind of come in there and maybe have more of an impact than you might necessarily think he might have. And then the energy that he brings is just something that you can't replace with this team. So, overall, though, I really agree with you, Facci. That second half was incredible. And then my last thing, I kind of touched on it last point, but I just want to kind of close out with this. The Pacers had 20 fast break points. The Miami Heat had 0. And when you're able to keep teams from getting out and running, I think that's really beneficial for you. So the Pacers like to get out and run. I'm not even 100% sure like what their numbers are, fast break points per game, whatever. But 20 doesn't feel super high, but it feels significant when you hold the other team to 0. So being a plus 20 on that side of the basketball was really huge to me. And I think most of those fast break points came once the Pacers started playing faster because they were not playing fast at all. They were playing methodical, lethargic, whatever word you want to use. And it was like, man, are they like stuck in the mud or what's going on? But then like that bench unit came in and you're like seeing Isaiah Jackson sprint down the court. And it's like, man, this is refreshing. I felt like Miles Turner was just like barely shuffling his feet to get down the court. And like they were just going like halfway through the motions. And I'm like, what are we doing here? And then it was just a breath of fresh air to see them kind of play that faster pace. So love seeing that they were just so dominant in terms of being 20 points to 0 in the fast break column.
Yeah, a 20 to 0 advantage for fast break points is amazing. Couldn't have asked for anything real, much better because Miami had 15 fast break points the previous game. So you're talking about you eliminated 15 points, on the fast break. You trimmed off, 21 free throw attempts. I just feel like that's a major, major difference in how you can tighten up the game. And the Pacers did a fantastic job of that. So, everybody, I hope you liked these keys to the game. I honestly think in a game like this, there might have been 10. There might have been more. There was so much great things that happened in this game that led to this Pacers victory instead of just saying, oh, they shot the three-point ball really well. No, they played a really complete game, and offensively, they were magnificent. I think you could use 20 different words to describe how they were offensively, but I thought these were maybe 6 of the top keys to the win.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I mean, it was funny. I did my 10 thoughts article on the game after the game ended last night. Since we didn't have a podcast, I was able to jump right into it. And somebody said, "Man, it was probably hard to keep, only 10 things on your list after everything that went down last night." I'm like, yeah, it's funny because there's different things you can pick and choose from. But yeah, I mean, I could have literally wrote in a blurb about every single player in the game just because of how well I thought everybody played. Even a guy like Andrew Nembhard shot the ball like 1 of 9, was terrible, 18% shooting the basketball wise. But my goodness, 11 assists. And people are sitting there knocking him for how bad he is. I'm just like, can we just enjoy the win?
And 0 turnovers.
0 turnovers, yeah.
I mean, him and McConnell, I mean, they were
turnover between the two of them.
22 assists. I mean, it's just, you couldn't have asked for better ball control and ball movement when the guy who leads the NBA in assists is not playing. Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's any other team that has 2 point guards that can step up like that, and distribute the rock.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and here we are kind of cheating on our 3 keys. We're throwing in something else there to give them a little bit of love despite the poor shooting percentages. But let's get into our next segment here on our post-game recap. This is our fill-in-the-blank segment. Me and Facci each have 3 fill-in-the-blank questions for one another. So we'll jump right into this and just be kind of quick with it. So Facci, go ahead with your number 1.
Obi Toppin's play versus Miami was?
It was tremendous. I thought he was spectacular in every aspect of the game, and it really was pivotal to the Pacers getting a victory. What would be your answer for this?
Crucial. I mean, I felt like for Obi to, if he had just brought it defensively, that might have been like, oh wow, look what Obi did defensively on Jimmy, and just it's great. But he also gave you 22 points on efficient shooting. So I felt like you needed somebody to step up, and you didn't necessarily know who it was going to be. Maybe you think, oh, well, maybe Aaron Nesmith or anything. For it to be Obi Toppin, I felt like that was just crucial.
Absolutely. And I'm going back to McConnell because we were getting tweets last night saying, oh, you guys still want to trade TJ? And I really don't think we were like saying we need to trade him to get rid of to increase Nembhard's minutes. I think we were just saying if he's not going to play, it does make some sense.
Exactly.
That's besides the point. So my first fill in the blank, Facci. McConnell's big game should his playing time.
This was really tough because I didn't want to be a prisoner of the moment, but I'm going to say increase his playing time, and I'll tell you why. Maybe it is just the recency bias, but I just don't think that he needs to be out of the rotation. I think he doesn't need to play 20 minutes a night. Doesn't need to be 15 to 20. But is there an opportunity to be able to bring him in when you want to, set the tone, change the pace, whatever it may be? I feel like McConnell is one of the few players that can be a spark plug on this team. I think there's certain guys that could come in. They're not going to change the game the way that McConnell can in a play or two. So I think I would say he only helped his case. So why not maybe increase his playing time?
Yeah, I said positively impact his playing time. I don't necessarily believe that Rick Carlisle is just going to fully give him the reins to the backup point guard spot like a lot of people are claiming for. Yelling on the table saying, and Nembhard sucks, Nembhard's this, Nembhard's that. If you watch the games, there's been times where McConnell has been awful, and I haven't heard any of these TJ McConnell stands in my comments telling me how great he is. Like, McConnell's a fan favorite. There's no doubt about it. He is a beloved Indiana Pacer. He plays basketball the way Indiana fans believe basketball should be played, and for that, I think that this should positively impact his playing time, but I don't think that it should immediately put him into he must play every night. I think that having this kind of like, okay, chip on your shoulder, go out there and prove it, like bring that energy. Because there's nights I think that he doesn't always do that and the matchup doesn't fit him well. But I thought against Miami, it definitely fit his style of play. Yeah,
I think it definitely did. But I just felt like McConnell was someone that was out there and really did impact the game, though. I know he might have been a +5 overall, but I don't think a guy like TJ McConnell could have done any more in this game. So he didn't need to have like a +20 to be like, wow, he really impacted the game. You could just see it.
Yeah.
So I felt like this Pacers team, they looked dead in that fourth quarter against Miami, last time. And McConnell was someone, when you're looking at how can we do things a little bit differently, he was huge in this game. So I didn't necessarily know exactly how to answer because you don't want to be a prisoner in the moment, like I said. But on a night like tonight, it just shows it's like, man, it's a good problem to have, having McConnell on the bench, but it's also just like he's not going to do it every night. But when he does do something like this, you're like, man, we're in a good spot having 3 good point guards that can contribute any night.
Absolutely, Facci. So, let's go to your next fill in the blank.
Speaking about McConnell, Nembhard and McConnell filled in blank for Haliburton.
Filled in great. I mean, I didn't even notice Tyrese wasn't out there last night, to be honest with you, for a certain stretch of the game. It's like, okay, this was great. I mean, obviously, we talked about them at nauseum, what they've done, but 22 assists to just 1 turnover, you can't beat that. I mean, that is Tyrese Haliburton-esque. So great job by them to step up and fill the void. What was your answer for this one?
I'm going to go with spectacularly, because I felt like in this scenario, that's even a hard word to even say. But honestly, I had to rehearse it a couple times. I had to rehearse it a couple times in my head before I said it. I'm not going to try it again because I'll probably even butcher it. But I felt like from a distributing standpoint, you're telling me that the Indiana Pacers had 35 assists in the game and Tyrese Haliburton didn't play? Yeah. I felt like that was just massive. And I know that Nembhard did not shoot the ball well, 1 of 9. But the fact that he had 11 assists, 0 turnovers, and then McConnell had 11 assists and 1 turnover, that was amazing. But McConnell also gave you 20. So I felt like those point guards filled in as great as you could have possibly asked for and more.
Some might even say it was spectacular, Facci.
Yeah. It's a hard, spectacularly, it's tough, man. It's tough.
I like how you threw the extra part on there to make it even harder for you to say.
Yeah, I had to, because
yourself.
They needed a little bit something more than just spectacular. So I felt that those 2 guys, they really delivered, and I was happy to see Nembhard get the start, because I just felt like it was like, come on, we really want to have him like get his mojo back, and I don't necessarily think he got it, but I think that it was great to see him, distribute the ball well.
Well, we got to remember he did get injured in practice and missed like 3 or 4 games because he had a bad back, and I think Quinn Buckner brought this up on the broadcast, saying he has not looked the same shooting the basketball since he came back from that injury. He's not been great all year long, I don't think, as a shooter. It's been kind of a rough year shooting form wise, but he's been injured since the beginning of training camp, right? Had the kidney stones and then came back, and then he had the back injury. So it's, he's played through some pain, and I think he's getting back there. Just give him some time. It's still pretty early in the season. But let's go to my next fill in the blank here, Facci. I said the Pacers' biggest area of improvement from game 1 versus Miami to game 2 was
honestly, the ability to defend without fouling. I just
great
feel like
point.
That's just how it is, because we talked about 20 less free throws than the previous game. That's the biggest difference. The Pacers were able to play defense without sending someone to the line, and I just feel like Jimmy in particular, the foul merchant, 11 less free throws. Yeah. That is such a big difference in this game, and then that easily could have swung the game in many different directions if the Pacers were fouling at the rate they did on Thursday night.
I was surprised I left you so stunned, because I sent you these questions and these answers a little ahead of time.
Because you try and think of one word, and I had more of like a sentence.
It was fill in the blank. You can fill in the blank however you want to do it. There's not one answer for it.
Yeah, no, I know. But sometimes it's like, all right, you know what? Should I try and trim this down, or am I going with really, 5 words for it? But yeah, that's what I went with, the ability to defend without fouling.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. That was going to be my answer. Just their ability to keep Miami off the free throw line, and they defended at a high level this game. I thought it was spectacular, Facci.
Yeah, exactly. That might be the theme of the night, man. It really might be.
It's going to be in our title, a spectacular night by the Pacers.
it really could be. It sounds fitting.
We got 2 more. Let's go to the next one.
Yep, for my last fill in the blank, this type of performance without Haliburton was
one that I hope we don't have to see very often. Now, I say that because I don't want to see Haliburton hurt, because I don't trust this team to be able to play this well without Tyrese Haliburton. So it was refreshing. It was nice to see, but you can't rely on this to happen the next time Tyrese is out, because we've seen an awful loss to Boston by 50 points, and we've also seen a great win on the road versus Miami. I think somewhere in the middle is the actuality of what those two would be like if he wasn't there for an extended period of time, and I think it'd be worse and probably closer to, you lost by 50, you won by what, 15 this game, so you're maybe losing games by 20 points, somewhere in the middle there. So, yeah, that's kind of how I feel about that one.
It's funny because the words that you mentioned, refreshing, I debated that, but I ended up going with surprising because
good one.
surprising. I don't think that this would happen again. I think that this is, we saw what happened last year when Haliburton went down in January. This team, I mean, the wheels came off. They really fell apart. So I don't want to see this team much more without Haliburton. But on a night like Saturday night against Miami, the Pacers absolutely, as a unit, rose to the occasion and handled business.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm mad at myself because the answer that I should have gave was this type of performance without Haliburton was spectacular, Facci.
Yeah, you really could have. You really probably could have answered everything.
I'm mad at myself. I'm kicking myself right now.
No, there'll be other opportunities.
Silver platter. Just jumped right in and said that's stupid instead. What am I doing? My last one for you. This is the one that I think we need to talk about actually a little bit, since we haven't touched on it too much. But Bruce Brown's 30-point night proved what?
He's capable of more. And the reason why I say that is because he hasn't been given this big scoring role. It's not like other teams where when you do hand out that big contract, it's like, all right, go out and score. But Alex, you know me. I keep that shovel right to the side of me. And I got another stat for you.
Is it from my article?
Nope. Did you know that the Pacers are 7-2 this year when Bruce Brown has attempted 10 or more shots?
Oh, 7-2. I like
7-2. The two losses are against Chicago and Portland, games that the Pacers easily should have won, and you make an argument fumbled away. So I felt that Bruce's role each night, it's not to be a top 2 scorer on this team, but if you need him to shoot the ball more and attempt more and be more involved, he can do it for you. And I think on a night like tonight, he was like one of the perfect players to step up in Haliburton's absence because he had a season high 30. And I don't think that many people thought that was going to happen. If he gave you 20, you would have been happy with it. But Bruce Brown really, really held it down against Miami.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you answered was great. And I'll go back to the hint that I put out there with my article, because Bruce Brown has had one 30-point game in his entire career other than what happened against the Heat. And that was 31 points. And I believe it was against, I want to say the Brooklyn Nets. I can't remember.
Revenge game.
I can't remember, but I think it was with the Nuggets last year. He had 31. So this is his second highest scoring performance in his entire NBA career. And we're just not used to seeing Bruce Brown be that type of scorer. So if you're expecting him to be this every night, your expectations are way too high, because that's not who he is. And I think that when we try to pigeonhole people into players that they really aren't, like your expectations are high because he's getting paid a lot of money. Well, you have to realize what he brings to the table, and that's defense. And, we're going to talk to Keith Smith about that in the next segment about the defense and how maybe he's been a little bit underwhelming this year. But overall, I think that Bruce Brown, that game proved, okay, he can do more than what he's been doing. And what I loved hearing him say in the post-game press conference was, yeah, I played terrible the night that Tyrese did not play with us in Boston. And I was awful, and I didn't shoot the ball well. And I wanted to go out there and prove that I can step up to the challenge when Tyrese is not there. And that's why I was extra motivated. So loved hearing that from him, Facci. But let's go ahead and close things out here on our very first part of the podcast here, talking about who the MVP of the game was. So I'm curious, do we have an MVP from you?
I'm going Obi Toppin, and I know he didn't lead us in scoring, but I thought that he just had such a complete game that I would like him to get that acknowledgement. Really stepped up when we needed someone to step up, and defensively, it might have been the best that I've seen him play defense.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think Obi Toppin was the MVP. I put that in my article, and I think it was because of the two-way play that he showed in this game and his ability to really impact Jimmy Butler's production. Jimmy Butler had 33 points, but he went 9 of 23 from the field. I think when you think about 23 shots plus 9 free throws equating to 33 points, that's pretty solid defense on a guy that is just a superstar in this league. I mean, no matter how you look at it, I think Jimmy Butler is a superstar level player who gets a superstar whistle when you're playing against him. So I definitely love the way that Obi Toppin came out and really tried to prove how important this game was to him, and just prove that he can do more than maybe he's done all season. So we're seeing Obi Toppin just take a step forward every single game. It feels like. I feel like the more we watch him play, the more you realize how important he is to this team.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, there's a whole bunch of stats going out there like, oh, over his last 6 games or so, like he's averaging like 17 and a half points per game, but the field goal percentage that he's doing it at is ridiculous. Over that stretch of the last 6 games, it's like 71% for the season. It's 61% from the field. I just feel that he's been extremely efficient, but he's also learning how to play a far more expanded role and more minutes. So it's like, give him time. Give him time. I mean, he was averaging 15 minutes per game in the past. So I think he's going to get better and better as the season goes on. But definitely my MVP for this game against Miami.
The better he defends, the more playing time he will get, and that has that's been a reoccurring theme with Rick Carlisle. Doesn't matter if you're Ben Mathurin, if you're Bruce Brown, if you're Buddy Hield. Like, one thing that we did miss in the post game recap against the Heat, we were talking about Mathurin getting pulled for that terrible ball watch that happened against the Heat in the fourth quarter. Well, I missed it, and I actually had to go back and edit it in my article. Bruce Brown got backdoored by Jaime Jaquez the play before that, and he was actually pulled in that game too. So both guys were pulled after they got caught ball watching, and I think that Rick is trying to prove, okay, I'm holding accountability for everybody and not just Ben Mathurin. Everybody thinks that, Ben's getting, unfair treatment, but I thought it was kind of telling that Rick did pull Bruce Brown after he got beat backdoor and didn't watch, because he was ball watching. So that to me is just like, okay, Rick's being fair. You're just probably not catching every little detail in the game.
I think it's extremely important to hold everybody to the same standard. So to be able to yank Bruce Brown, a guy who's, far more of a veteran in this league than Benedict Mathurin, the guy who is the highest paid on the team, just to be able to do that really sets a tone to say, hey, look, no one is exempt from this. So that's the way to coach, so other people don't feel that you're being just too hard on them individually.
Absolutely, Facci. Well, let's go ahead and take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to have on from SpotTrack.com the legend Keith Smith to give us a little Pacers Celtics preview for the big in-season tournament game coming at you Monday night, 7:30, Cambridge Photos. We'll be right back after this.